happy spring break, everyone. I hope you all had a fabulous Easter. I wanted to touch on underwriting deals this week. So I've been analyzing deals for 22 years now, and I own apartments myself, have owned for the last 15 years. So regardless of what market you're in, you need to have an intimate understanding of how to underwrite deals. Now, what I see a lot is that most broker packages are just marketing. And I say that all the time. No hard feelings or and not say anything bad about brokers at all, but we are salespeople, right? So it's just one of those things that you need to be able to understand the underwriting and work your own numbers, not just take the numbers that are in a marketing package at face value. So not only do you want to verify them with the seller for what the seller has, but you also need to kind of put your own logic into it. For example, I even see seller P&Ls sometimes, especially for smaller properties. A lot of times they're running these things like, with no software, or maybe they self-manage and they don't really have a lot of expenses, or maybe they don't run the property the way that you would run the property. So you really want to look at where the expenses are and not just take anything at face value. Use what's market. Talk to maybe other people if you're new in the business. Absolutely. You're going to want to talk with someone like me or someone else that that owns a lot of apartments and see what kind of expenses that they're using for their deals as well. So like I said, broker packages are marketing. They really don't necessarily represent how a property actually operates. So, and a lot of times with brokers, they're also tweaking the numbers to show the highest possible cap rate, especially in a market like this. Look, cap rates are still compressed, rates are still up, and you got to make a deal look as attractive as you can. And so I'm seeing that a lot these days. Now, lenders are going to use market expenses, and those have been increasing as we're experiencing huge cost increases across the board. So I would say that a lender's underwriting is also more conservative than a broker's on a marketing package. So a lot of times, let's say that a broker on a marketing package uses certain expenses. Those expenses are probably lower than what we use to qualify on a loan, which means that your loan amount will be affected one way or the other. So just a number of reasons why you really need to understand intimately underwriting. It goes with any investment, right? You want to understand what you're investing in, do your due diligence, understand what the cost is going to be and what your overall return is going to be at the end of the day, right? So now I have this, I think what you should use is a checklist as you're looking at deals, especially if you're newer at this and you might forget things here and there. Even if you're experienced, it's nice to kind of just run through a checklist because you inevitably will miss something if you don't have a checklist to look at. So I'm just going to run through a handful of things that I see when I'm underwriting deals and things that you want to make sure of. So the first one is vacancy. Now, most broker packages are using 3 to 4% for vacancy. Lenders use 5%, and that is more accurate, even if you want to make the argument that countywide vacancy was 3 or 4%, just depending on the time. In COVID, I think we're down as low as 2% for a time, but that doesn't include time to turn the unit and get the unit ready to go to market. It's really just factoring in that vacancy loss. Like, hey, when the tenant moves out, like you've got that vacancy, you really need to factor in your vacancy loss. You should have some sort of, something to factor in bad debt, all that kind of stuff. 5% is actually pretty accurate for most of San Diego, especially if you're in kind of like a better market. Now, if you're in like a D or F location, let's say, which aren't many here in San Diego, that might be different because you might be dealing with more evictions and things like that. And if you have an eviction, obviously that's going to increase your vacancy rate exponentially because you could be 6 to 9 months minimum dealing with trying to get a tenant out that's not paying rent. So that should be factored into your vacancy as well. Now, insurance. Insurance is a big one. We're seeing much higher insurance quotes these days. I use now anywhere from 65 to 75 cents per square foot, and I highly recommend getting insurance quotes up front. Your agent is probably going to need extra time to find the best quote because there's a lot of carriers who are not renewing. There's just far fewer insurance companies that are actually insuring properties in California. I mean, I'm hearing more and more left and right of Mercury non-renewing policy. I just heard Allstate. I don't know who uses Allstate for their apartments. If you do, they're usually not the most competitive anyways, but like companies like that are all either non-renewing or permanent or leaving California for the time being. So your broker is working harder than ever, your insurance broker, to find you the best insurance quote if they can even find you insurance at all. Some people are talking about having to go on California Fair Plan, which is definitely not the most cost effective. So you need to spend some time looking at that. And you obviously want to make sure that you have the proper coverage, which is also a big thing. There's a lot of things that are left out on insurance, but that's a huge topic. I'm not going to dive too deep into that rabbit hole. But so the next thing, property taxes. This is also a big one. A lot of brokers use like a standard 1.25%, but some parts of San Diego add sewer to the bill. So you need to look out for that. And that gets overlooked frequently. And that's usually a bigger number, right? Like it's usually thousands of dollars depending on the size of the property. I've seen, a couple times maybe a $3,000 or $4,000 sewer expense that was left off. That will definitely affect the loan amount. One recently I saw was a $9,000 omission. So $9,000 less of cash flow on an annual basis most certainly will affect the loan amount. So stuff like when you combine all these little things up, it's gonna hit you pretty hard in the end. And you definitely don't want that surprise as you go down farther down the road. You want to find this stuff up front. So I always pull the tax bill so that way I can see what the tax rate is. And then I add any sewer charges along with any other charges, because a lot of times, even if you're not paying sewer through your tax bill, there's usually a couple $100 of extra fees that you pay on top of the actual tax rate. So whether it's like 1.19 or 1.23, it's different depending on what part of San Diego that you're looking to buy in. And really anywhere that you look, I'm sure this is similar, whether it's San Diego or somewhere else. So I always pull the tax bill just to be safe, because you never want to see surprises there either. So utilities and trash. I would either ask for 12 months bills, probably going to get that as part of due diligence, and or a 12-month trailing P&L so you can see monthly utility costs. Now, it used to be, before things went crazy, that you would just use the annual utility costs in your numbers. But nowadays, because the utility costs have gone up so much recently, I would say that it's safer to use at the average of the last 3 to 6 months. We've had a huge spike in utility costs. I'm seeing appraisers use higher utilities than actual on all of the appraisals. So you don't want to end up getting surprised with your loan. And you also don't want to get surprised that your bill is actually higher than what was stated after you close. So look at the last 3 to 6 months bills. Use that average. That's a much safer number than using the annual number for the last 12 months. So I kind of included trash and utilities too. Now, you definitely want to take a look at that. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do anymore because there's like a monopoly on trash. You pretty much have to use waste management or EDCO or whoever is servicing your area. You really don't have a choice in most parts of San Diego, but you should at least evaluate, are you getting enough pickups? Are you not getting enough pickups? I mean, this is obvious to me, but you kind of need to look and see if, like, are your bins just piling up and people are just putting trash all around the bin because it's overflowing? Probably, unfortunately, need an extra pickup. It happens too when you have move outs. So that happens once in a while. You might need an extra pickup or something. But generally speaking, I would just look and see, if you have enough trash. If you're not on site or you're not in the area, ask one of your tenants to take a look and tell you what they think. Because trash is also one that could add or reduce your NOI by a fairly decent amount. And we've been seeing a huge increases there. So again, look at the most recent, like 3 or 4 months bills, because I've been seeing increases really across the board there. And that's the number you use rather than using that. So anyways, look where you can cut back there, if anything at all. Now, let's see what else. Repairs and maintenance. So you should be using around $1,100 per unit plus landscaping, pool, elevator, and porting. Porting is cleaning up around the property. So even if you don't have any landscaping, somebody should be cleaning up around the property, whether it's like sweeping, picking up trash, cleaning the laundry room, all that good stuff. That's something that is needed. If you try to cut it out, you will find that tenants are always complaining about how messy the common area is. And if you're trying to attract good tenants, you want to maintain a nice clean look on the property. It's usually not that expensive. It's like, I think I pay somewhere around $150 a month at my 12 unit property for reporting through my property manager. So management fees, that's the next one. So depending on the property size, we generally use 4 to 6% management fees. Now, it's 6% for smaller properties, say less than 15 units. So 6% for up to 15 units, 5% from 15 to around 50 units, and 4% for larger buildings. I see marketing packages for small properties all the time with either like a 4% management fee or even zero. So even if you plan to self-manage, you need to include a management fee. Lenders are going to use it. It's going to affect your loan amount. And not to mention, whenever you plan to sell a property, experienced buyers are going to factor in a management fee when they're looking at the property. So that when you go to list the property, you're not going to be able to say, well, I self-manage and I'm not going to, so I'm not, there's no management fee in the sale, increase my sale price by that amount. You need to use a management fee. So like a good broker or an experienced buyer, everybody uses a management fee. It's just an industry standard. So, and now for on-site management. So if the building's more than 16 units, of course, you need an on-site man. Again, even if you plan to forego having one, I've been seeing that more often than not. I've been seeing it more and more lately that even if your building has 16 units or more, you might not have an on-site manager. Well, you still need to factor in paying one. So you need to factor in some sort of payroll for your on-site manager or having an on-site manager, even if you don't have one. Lender's going to use it. And whenever you go to sell, a buyer is going to factor it into. They're probably going to have an on-site manager. So reserves. This is one that I see, it's like 50-50 whether or not this is on a marketing package. Reserve, this one is usually, like I said, either missing on the marketing package or it's low. I usually use $300 to $500 per unit for this. This basically just covers unexpected costs, right? Like, hey, your water heater blows up and you need to replace it. I mean, that would be factored into that cost. Honestly, you probably end up using all of that and then some on your property on an annual basis, depending on what you're budgeting for. So things just come up. So lenders use it. Buyers are going to use it. An experienced buyer is going to use it to factor in as well. So now the last thing is these costs are usually minimal, but you also want to factor in the rental unit business tax that you have to pay every year, fire safety, which you do once a year, and administrative costs. Now, I usually lump these all together because it's usually enough to encompass all of that. $100 per unit is what I generally factor in. It's like an easy underwriting thing. It's something small, but like I said, you want to factor in all of the costs and you don't want to go, oh, that's only a few $100, so I'll just leave that off, because before you know it adds up and you're not, your budget is not meeting your budget, you're over budget. So anyways, larger properties are going to also have advertising costs, whether it's subscriptions to Zillow or apartments.com or to maintain your website. So advertising is one you really only see for bigger properties, like, 50 plus units, but more likely like even bigger than that. But advertising is a real cost as you get up there with more units. So anyways, the bottom line is no matter what you're investing in, run your analysis and understand the cost so you can accurately calculate your return and know if an investment meets your criteria. So that is kind of like a brief rundown of what you should be looking at in terms of underwriting a property. That's a little bit of a 101 today, but it's always good to kind of quickly run through your criteria. And like I said, a lot of times underwriting is just, it's changed a little bit like everything, just like you have to check rates every week now. You kind of need to be checking on what are costs to operate a building. It's getting more and more expensive as well. So that is it for this week, you guys. This week we have a ton of economic news, so you want to watch out for that. I think there will be some turbulence in the market because of this. We have lots of jobs reports. We have a little bit of other news along with more Fed speeches. So like I said, I think it's going to be a bumpy ride with treasuries this week. Manufacturing prices came in higher on Monday, which caused a spike in treasuries to start the week as it is. And so Tuesday, we get another jobs report. Later in the week, we get ADP employment and jobless claims, hourly wages. So we've got lots of things going on this week, like I said. So hopefully you guys are on vacation, enjoying yourselves somewhere for spring break. And I will see you.